Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates on this Halloween, October 31, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioners Savas and West are on their way. Because there's no business meeting this Thursday, November 2nd, you have no requests for consent agenda, so that's why those are not on your agenda today. Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
This is advisory board and commission appointments for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I'll ask Tony to take it from here. He's a little occupied right now, so there you go, Tony. All right, Tony, go ahead, please.
The Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board, staffed by North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, currently has 3 openings on the commission due to 1 term expiration and 2 vacancies. 11 members are allowed to 3-year terms. Through a recruitment process, 1 application was received and is recommended for appointment. This will be a reappointment of Benjamin Horner Johnson.
Just a moment. I am looking. I see the Aging Services Advisory Council, and I see a Budget Committee. I don't see here, Tony, excuse me, I beg your pardon. The NCP Community Center Advisory Board. There. Okay. Commissioners, I will entertain a motion to accept the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board appointee, Benjamin Horner Johnson.
So moved.
Commissioner Schrader has moved for the reappointment, and
Seconded.
Commissioner Shull has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Director West.
Aye.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Director Shull.
Aye.
Director Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the North Clackamas County Parks and Recreation District and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Next is approval of proposed bylaws for the Cottrell Community Planning Organization. There's a memo in your packet. Sue Hildick, Director of Public and Government Affairs, will present.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Cottrell CPO last updated its bylaws in 2006, so it's been a while. The ones before you have gone through County Council. They conform to the model bylaws that PGA has put together for CPOs, and we would ask for your approval.
Do we have any questions or comments regarding the new proposed bylaws for the Cottrell District?
Just one, just confirmation that this is, I won't say a boilerplate, but this is our updated bylaws just being applied to Cottrell.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
We call it our modernization plan for CPO bylaws.
And we're doing other
20%.
CPOs as well.
Yes.
Are we doing hamlets?
Yes, in fact, Beaver Creek is going to be coming before you quite soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I will accept a motion.
I move to approve the proposed bylaws for the Cottrell Community Planning Organization dated 31 October
Second.
2023.
Commissioner Shull has moved we approve the bylaws for the Cottrell Community Planning Organization, and Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Shull.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Sue Hildick. Up next.
Next is a request from the City of Lake Oswego regarding a vertical housing development zone request. I will present this. There's a memo in your packet. There's a letter from the city manager of the City of Lake Oswego that the City of Lake Oswego is going to establish a vertical housing development zone, which creates, it's a purpose to partially abate, a partial property tax abatement program for the purposes of affordable housing units. This, and the memo shows a graphic. These are 3 parcels in downtown Lake Oswego on 1st Street, B Avenue and North State Street that will develop 67 housing units. This will be a 10-year proposed tax abatement program. Because we're one of the taxing districts, the city of Lake Oswego is asking, does Clackamas County want to opt out of the proposed zone? And if so, that taxes would continue to be imposed for those properties to Clackamas County. If you take no action, then we will be a part of the program and taxes will be abated for 10 years. So I'm seeking your input, commissioners. Do you want to opt out of this proposal or stay in the proposal?
So what does it mean if we opt out?
If you opt out, that means Clackamas County will still collect taxes on those 3 parcels of property for the next 10 years. Property tax.
Well, I have really not liked this type of financing, and I will support to opt out, and that's very consistent with my positions over time. If the city of Lake Oswego wants to build affordable housing in their area, I would suggest that maybe we could use some of the SHS dollars for that. But it's affordable housing, it's not replacement housing for homeless. So I've reached out to Lake Oswego, as I've reached out to all the cities on a monthly basis, to say, let me know what you're thinking. We're here to help. Not once was this brought up in our meetings, so I will vote to opt out on that. You know, a lot of cities are doing this kind of stuff, and it's going to come to a point that every city out there is trying to do an urban renewal practically. Commissioner Salas.
Yeah, I just wish there was more information on this.
Me too.
For example, under A, background overview, it states that this is a private sector development to build mixed-use development and affordable housing. So I don't know what the ratio is, and I don't know also, frankly, what the forgiveness is on the taxes as, monetarily to the county. And does this apply to the affordable housing unit or the entire? My guess is the entirety. So I just think that that's sets a precedent that if we're doing it for affordable housing, we're doing it for affordable housing. If we're doing it for private sector, that opens up Pandora's box. So I just have a concern, just not having enough data here to, but on the face of it, I just need more information.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm going to default to no.
Thank you. I'm not sure. I think Commissioner Schrader, were you up next?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I am aware of this project. I think it's a good project. I'm okay with the tax abatement. I may be in the minority, but I'm aware of exactly where it is, the kind of housing that it's going to be. It'll be middle housing, and it's the redevelopment across the main drag there, not State Street, but the main avenue up in the first. Yeah, it's A Avenue, and it's in the
E Avenue.
kind of by the First Edition.
Yeah, it's
area
B
there,
Avenue
yeah.
and State.
Yeah, by State. So it's State Street and B. Yeah, I know where it is. I got it.
Okay,
So I'm okay with it, but if
thank
we'll
you.
just see.
Commissioner Schull?
Yes, I am inclined to support this workforce housing units for affordable housing to those earning 80% or less of area median income. This kind of housing is very much needed. But before decisions made, I'd like to see a picture on exactly how much this property tax abatement would mean to the county. Thank you.
Before I go to Commissioner West, Gary, is there a timeline for this? Sounds like the board members want more information.
Yes, we have, I lost it here. We have 30 days to reply to the city and
Okay.
from October 20th. So you have till November 20th to either say opt out and no action means you're in.
No action means we're in, okay. Commissioner West?
I bring a little bit of a unique perspective, being a Wilsonville city councilor and doing a similar project like this in the Villebois town square area, that we really had difficulty getting that last segment of Villebois developed out. And there have been so many changes in the market, and with the type of development that need to be done there, it made it feasible for the developer to do that work. One question I've also always had is programs like this have also been available to homeowners to get a 10-year tax abatement for first-time home ownership within a certain income level to help people abate have an abatement on the cost of that property itself, and it's been a great tool for economic development for that segment of the population that often has difficulty getting into housing or ever having home ownership. So I'm curious if that would ever be applied to or passed through to the residents that would live here. I'm inclined to support this. I have some questions about it also still, Gary, but I've seen this be a beneficial tool to spur development in the area.
Gary, I'm going to ask that you come back with some numbers at another time, thank you. But Commissioners, I would really like to remind you, this is a hit on our general fund, correct? It's general fund taxes that we will be sacrificing to pay for this. How many times, and just the session this morning we've had, this is coming out of general fund, this is coming out of general fund, and it's not our responsibility to make sure another city has affordable housing. It is not. I am vehemently opposed to this. I will always be opposed to this. You've got to start, Commissioners, I implore you to start looking at the general fund, because I guarantee you there's going to be something more important coming down the pipeline that we are responsible for. We are not responsible for Lake Oswego's affordable housing. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so if, as I read more of this, and I'm not, again, finding the complete answers I'm looking for, but the other part about this, just want to make sure my colleagues are aware that it looks like the exemption applies to, 8 units. Well, actually, it applies to all of it, but there's 67 housing units. There's 8 affordable housing units at 80% income. Plus, there's the commercial on the first floor. And it also has eligibility. So in the end of the day, again, it looks like it's woefully private versus workforce. Just want to say that. So if there's a way that these programs, and I don't know, if there's a way these programs can be focused where the tax exemption is on the affordable housing or workforce housing solely and not the private side. But again, it's a Pandora's box. If we subsidize a private sector, then everyone will be asking for a private sector subsidy on their taxes.
Gary, could you bring back the information for us?
We'll bring it back.
And
I'll
we will
invite a
just
representative
table
from.
the action today? Do we need a motion to table?
Motion.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll bring it back. I'll invite City of Lake Oswego staff to attend, and we'll do it all before November 20th.
And Chair, could I ask Gary, could we find out over a 10-year period what would be the loss to the county? Because sometimes when I guess one of the assertions I might make, Chair, is that it really doesn't matter where the housing is in what city or unincorporated whatever. If you're getting that level of affordable housing for people, it's workforce housing, and it certainly helps people get into the housing they need to prosper in this county, and it is woefully lacking at that level to do it. So I see it more as a partnership with our cities in order to increase the
I don't disagree with that, Commissioner
capacity,
Schrader.
yeah.
I'm going to reiterate, this is our very precious general fund, and we are getting pressure. Please be mindful of that. I don't care if it's only $10,000. I don't know what the cost is going to be, but every commissioner sitting at this dais wants to fund their special little pet projects. And when it comes down to the end of the day, we need to look globally. We need to look at everything that we do in the county. So Gary, thank you. Bring that back. Paul, and then Commissioner.
Yeah, just one other thing, if you are going to bring this back, I say to everything else, the other thing I want to better understand is, oh gosh, I just forgot what I was going to say.
We can come back.
Yeah, but I can submit it, to you, but I'm going to, first of all, I can see the timeline we have. So, I guess really frankly, absent everything, default to, really, what's the word? If we don't participate?
If you take no action, then you're in it. You'll be participating.
Right. But if we take action, we're opting out, the opt-out. So, if we can't get this done in time, I would like to opt out, but I would certainly like to better understand the math on this, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, I don't have any pet projects I want to fund, but I am interested in any kind of project that brings some element of affordable housing to our county. And again, I look forward to seeing the potential impact, if we were to approve this, on taxes to the county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gary, what's next?
Got it. Thank you. Next, Recovery-Oriented System of Care Summit Report. Cindy Becker from County Administration will present. There's a memo in your packet, a summary. Today's purpose is for an informational update. We're not seeking your direction, but rather to share with you the results, have a conversation with you, as we then come forward to you later for some specific actions. Cindy Becker, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Happy Halloween for those of you who are wearing orange or black.
Yes.
And if you're wearing both, you just get the prize. So happy Halloween. I'm actually really pleased to come before you and present this report. About almost 7 months ago, you had passed a resolution that was really going to guide county's actions around developing a system of care, and specifically a recovery-oriented system of care, focusing on people with addictions and mental health challenges. I want to talk about what a recovery-oriented system of care is, not for you, but for anybody who is watching this. And I'm just going to read this. A recovery-oriented system of care is a coordinated network of community-based services and supports that is person-centered and built on the strength and resilience of individuals, families, and communities to achieve abstinence and improved health, wellness, and quality of life for those with or at risk of alcohol and drug problems. And I think this is important for a number of reasons. This is not just about an individual. This is not just about county government. This is about the community of Clackamas. This is about individuals, families, friends, and communities. We're talking about a system of care, not a one-shot deal, not a specific service, but it really is a system of care for individuals most in need. The federal definition, or it talks about the 4 major dimensions of recovery, which is home, health, purpose, and community. Home is obvious what that is. I think health, again, we're talking about physical health and mental health and emotional health. Purpose, one of the things that often gets overlooked is purpose. And that is individuals who are going through these challenges, whether they're mental illness or whether they're addictions, really are looking for a purpose, whether that be a job, whether that be education, something in their life that's in addition to housing, in addition to their health. And community, again, looking at the broader community. In contrast to acute interventions, a recovery-oriented system of care addresses the chronic nature of addictions. If you look at what the state has done and what has happened probably nationally, what you see is reactive services. You don't really see a planful system of care to address this population. And so in April, after you passed the resolution, you decided that it was time to bring in some people to really talk to you, talk to us, talk to the community about what's going on, what are some of the state-of-the-art interventions, how can we, Clackamas County communities, improve and really grow a system of care for individuals with addictions. And so to that end, we had a 2-day summit, and we brought in folks from Canada, California, Texas, and Oregon. And you had 3 meetings. One meeting was with these expert panel and staff, one the expert panel and you, and one with the expert panel and community stakeholders. And we had a great set of diverse stakeholders. We had mayors, we had police people, we had EMS, we had providers, we had people with lived experience. So it was a really great mixture of folks that not only got to hear from the experts, but got to talk with each other in dialogue about what they saw as their needs, what they would like to see in the system. And the panelists listened. One of the things I did want to share with you, I've done a lot of events in my past lives, and very rarely do I have panelists come up and say, this was way beyond what we thought was going to happen. You really have got your act together in terms of bringing people together. They were extremely impressed with the county's efforts and with all the people that came to the table. So again, the purpose of the summit was to learn more about evidence-based programs, but also to hear from the people, boots on the ground, on the street, what's going on, what their needs are. And so on the bottom of page 2, you'll see some of the major themes that came out from there. So nothing, I think, that are surprising. These are things that you have heard for quite a while, and they're not just unique to Clackamas County. What's unique to Clackamas County is saying, you know what, we're going to look at a system to address this. We're not just going to say, okay, we're going to do a one-off. One of the other things that we did look at, what are the assets? The county is not starting with a blank slate. The county doesn't have a desert of services. We have a variety of services that are dedicated to people with addictions and mental health challenges. We have strong relationships with our funders. We have, we're expanding the county's clinic to over 40,000 square feet coming up next year. We're developing a new crisis stabilization center. The county was really a leader in working with peer-based services, not only with contracting, but bringing a person with lived experience on staff to be part of the solution. And we have long, productive relationships with fire, EMS, public safety, district attorney, local police. So we have started these conversations already, and the county has invested in a variety of services to address this population. So what are the gaps? There's waiting lists. There's not enough services. There's not enough services at the various levels. The lack of the right kinds of services. We don't have, for example, we don't have withdrawal management, as most people know it as detox in the county. We have to go out of county, and it's tough when you are competing with Multnomah County for beds, for detox beds. We don't have enough support in employment. We don't have enough housing specifically for people with addictions. Services are not necessarily built around a continuum. What happens, which is not unusual, is services get developed based on the funding that's available. So services are more reactive to what money is available, and then we step up to the plate. We don't have enough services in rural communities. We don't have enough residential beds. And as you know, transportation, system-wide transportation is a challenge in the county. So we met with the panelists before, during, and after the summit, and the next several pages talk about their recommendations. Should I just keep going, or do you want to stop at all?
Go ahead and finish your presentation, Cindy.
Okay, great. So the first thing was to come to an agreement on what does success look like? Because if all 5 commissioners and every mayor and every police person has a different definition of success, you're never going to get there. You may not all agree, but you've got to come to some kind of a consensus. You may all have different motives. That doesn't matter. What you need to come to, what is the definition of success, so that you'll know what you're looking at, working towards, and you'll know when you've landed there. We need to analyze data. We have lots of data. I mean, we have lots of data, and you can see that from the appendices. What the challenge is to turn that data into information. How do we turn that data into meaningful information that will guide the actions? How many beds? What kind of beds? What kind of services? Where should those services be? We have lots of data. We just don't have all of that pulled together. From the housing side, from the addiction side, from the mental health side, we need to bring all of that together. We need to look at the existing service capacities, identify the gaps, and there's also what's called sub-demographics groups, because not everybody with addictions has the same needs, looks alike, has the same support system. So we really have to look at what are the various populations and where are we best able to address their needs. We know one of the biggest recommendations was to create a recovery-oriented center or campus. And so if you look at what a recovery-oriented center would be, it's kind of like a microcosm of a system, so that you've got all the various services that someone may need either at the site, on a campus, or linked to the site, that is working for all the different parts of the recovery process for individuals. So whether it's assessment, whether it's crisis services, detox, sobering services. By the way, sobering services is different from detox services. Mental health services, medication-assisted treatment, inpatient, life skills classes, peer support, housing, case management, employment, and training. A recovery-oriented center would have a vested interest, if you will, in all of these components. Again, not everybody who comes through the recovery-oriented center needs all of them, but you want to have these available to address people's needs. We would also want to not develop a recovery-oriented center in isolation. We really want people at the table who are going to be involved with that, including providers and peers, so that we design a building, we design services that actually meet the needs of people. We want to bring law enforcement and emergency responders to the table, because often they're the people that are bringing these folks to the door. They're bringing them to emergency rooms. They're bringing them to the jails. We want this to be a diversion and a recovery center for them. We also want to develop, it's not just a recovery center sits in and of its own. It is part of a system. You have to look at what does entry look like? When people come in there, what happens? And what does exit look like? One of the things I think we seem to forget is, well, someone goes into rehab, so they're fixed. Or someone gets a service, so they're fixed. This is a chronic disease, and we're talking about long-term management. So just because someone may no longer need a recovery-oriented center, that doesn't mean they don't have long-term needs. So again, what is that exit? We don't do, when I say we, I would say not just Clackamas, but certainly across the state, we don't do a great job in transitioning people out of services into stability. We kind of say, okay, you're fixed and see you bye. We also need to develop a budget covering one-time and ongoing resource needs. And really, we want to convene public and private funders to the table. This is not just an issue, as I said, of Clackamas County government. This is an issue of facing the public sector, facing the private sector. And so we want to bring them to the table and also be part of the solution. The other recommendation is to keep talking. We had the summit. It was a great conversation. We need more of these. We need to go out to communities. We need to keep talking. We need to bring elected leaders, businesses, providers, public safety to the table. And they also suggested finally that an operations committee be appointed to take these recommendations and to operationalize them, to make them into reality. So that's all one recommendation. The next one is not to just focus on the recovery-oriented center, but to bolster the existing array of services and programs to provide rapid access to multiple levels of care. Rapid access is key to somebody who has addictions issues. And you can't say, well, we'll have something in a couple, 3 weeks. You've lost them. We need to have rapid access. And again, it's not just the recovery center, it is throughout the system. We also need to meet with businesses to start looking at what are some employment opportunities for people with addictions and people in recovery. Again, bringing the business community, bringing the private sector to the table. And they suggested that we double down on things that are working. So it's not that, again, we don't have a desert, we have things that are working, so let's really focus on that. And then the issue that comes in over and over and over again is workforce pay. We're asking people to do really yeoman's work, and I don't know if it's a yeoman, but anyway, hard work without and not paying them a lot of money. Last but certainly not least is beef up prevention efforts. We've heard this over and over again. We want to focus on prevention and early intervention so people don't get into the throes of addictions. Working with schools, other stakeholders, working with the media, we've got to get these messages out to everybody in a very consistent way. So in addition to those 5 recommendations, I had some other thoughts. One is to change the language. We have to start talking about recovery is an option for everyone, not a small percentage of people. But again, looking at what your definition of success is, recovery is an option, and we need to look at how do we provide the services and supports for recovery. We also need to acknowledge that what worked in the past isn't going to be necessarily working today. We're in a whole new world of drugs. Fentanyl and meth change the scope from marijuana and cocaine. These are different kinds of much deeper, much more problematic drugs resulting in instantaneous death, and we need to start looking at how we deal with those issues. And I have some data in there as well. The other piece, I mentioned this earlier, we're not talking about acute episodes of care. People need long-term treatment, and we need to set up a system that supports them in long-term treatment. We're very, as I said, we're very happy with the leadership role that Clackamas has put forth in terms of working with peers. But again, it's not just, okay, you're a peer, so come on in. We want to make sure that peers, people with lived experience, have the support, have the training that they need to be effective in the work that they do. Also, the group over and again talked about avoiding cookie cutter approaches. You can't say one person with addictions represents all people with addictions. So you really need to look at tailoring the services to their needs. Also, Clackamas is not, we don't have a Portland, we don't have a Beaverton. We have a lot of towns and cities and large rural communities that have these needs. And we need to make sure that we're providing services that are reaching in to those localities. One of the things that's been suggested is kind of a hub and spoke model where the recovery-oriented center is the hub and the spokes are going out to different populations and different geographic areas. The one thing that I thought was really interesting, and it was good to hear, is that intervention isn't a dirty word. As one of the panelists said, if you saw somebody on the street that had a gun to their head, you wouldn't just walk by them. You would want to intervene. And one of the individuals on the panel who's in recovery said most addicts will tell you they wish someone had intervened earlier. So we want to make sure that, you've got people who are on lethal drugs. They don't necessarily have all the rational thought process, and we can't simply assume they're going to quit on their own and going to reach out for services on their own. So we have to really reach in and provide those services. Regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, human life is worth saving. One of the panelists said there will be blowback from the community, but please put people first. And time is of the essence. And I'm going to read this quote because I think it's really important. We have people waiting. Substance use disorder is a condition where if people wait, people die. And even if they don't die immediately, people who don't get the hope when they are ready for it may no longer be ready when the help finally does arrive. And that quote is from Dr. Mendenhall, who is the president and CEO of Central City Concern.
That's a good one.
So with that, I'm not going to go over all of these attachments because they point to the fact that we have, again, a lot of data. You can see what the impact is on our jails, on our hospitals. It's not only a physical impact on the individuals, but it's a financial impact on the hospitals and jails. And with that, I am going to end my presentation and open it up for questions.
Cindy, thank you very much. This was a very good summit, and I think all of us participated and enjoyed it. I just want to recap a little bit about what the definition of success is. And you went through that pretty fast. Are you saying the definition of success is the 5 recommendations plus?
The definition of success would be what's a recovery-oriented system of care? What's the definition of success of that?
Yes, what is it?
Right. Well, that's what you all need to decide. Could it be that you've got the definition of success is that people are off the streets? That could be one person's definition of success. Someone else's could be people are in recovery and are actively employed. So there's different parts of the system that you could say this is what we think is. As long as we get people off the street, we're fine. We don't care where they go. I'm not saying you would say that, but that could be someone's definition. Someone's definition could be we want to reduce the number in emergency rooms. We want to make sure that we have housing for X percentage of people. So whatever your definition is, and there's no right or wrong, but it's really that everyone is working towards the same definition. And it could be that you implement a recovery-oriented system of care is your definition.
I guess what I'm asking, what's first, the chicken or the egg? Are you saying that we need to define success before we move forward? Or do we move forward and we're throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks and what doesn't?
I would say the latter is not what you would want because there's been a lot of money already spent on spaghetti.
Yep.
And throwing it against the wall. And so I think you want to come to, again, it doesn't have to be a hard and fast, but.
So how do we define that? Is it up to this board, the 5 people up here with input from others, to define what success means before we implement and or create a center, for instance?
So one of the things that I mentioned here was these are not sequential. You can run these on parallel tracks. We know we want a recovery-oriented system of care. I think you can do them at the same time. So I don't think you have to do one and then the other and then the other.
Yeah, because I kind of get hung up on the order
Right.
of things,
Yeah.
and I'm not necessarily a lineal thinker.
Right.
But if we don't have a definition of success that guides us through the processes, how will we be successful? And that's a rhetorical question.
Right.
We have not gone down this road before. We're creating the wheel as we go along. So maybe the folks listening out there and commissioners can give input on what we all think the definition of a success is. I don't care how long or short it is. It can be long. But if we're so all-encompassing, I don't want us to think that we have failed just because we didn't do .65 on our definition of success, if you understand what I'm saying. And you're right. It could be just less people in the emergency room. It could be somebody getting a job and going to AA every week. That's, to me, definitely a success. Yeah. So, who was up first? Mark, I think you were, and then Paul.
Thank you. Cindy Becker, thank you for the report. Can the people of the county access this report online?
Yes, it's on the issues, right?
Yeah, it's on the
Yeah.
Yeah,
tab.
okay, good, thank you. I believe that the summit, the panel, the recovery panel, their recommendations are very excellent. They give the county some clear tools to work towards. I believe that the picture of success on this is achievement towards these recommended goals. I, in the last few days, have spoken with care providers in the greater Portland area. One of the things that comes up is that there's a shortage of detox beds for fentanyl addiction. I'm told they need at least 28 days of patient in-house care to even begin to get to success for fentanyl addiction recovery. And then the next thing is once they make it through that 28 days, that there needs to be a long-term residential opioid treatment program with medical monitoring and observation to help ensure success. So the first thing is comes to mind on the panel's recommendation number 2, analyze data, review existing service capabilities, capacities, types of service, and waiting lists. So we get a picture of really what is available to our county today should somebody come in the door to H3S and say, I need help with fentanyl recovery. What is out there, okay? What can we utilize at this time, maybe with some funds through one of our departments to pay for that care? And then once we have that picture, then we can begin to look at recommendation number 3, create a recovery-oriented campus center. What is it going to be like? How big does it have to be? How many staff is going to be required? What's the budget going to be? So I know that our H3S staff is looking at these recommendations now, and most likely going through and saying, getting ideas on what they can do to begin to implement some of these, and maybe a timeline also. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I interpret it maybe a little bit differently. I agree that, defining or agreeing on what success looks like could be either very simple or very complex, and ideally probably more simple and maybe some metrics in there such as people reintegrating back with society, stable housing, staying sober, if you will, so forth. But I think the most important message I took out of this is that all the stakeholders and players and funders all agree what success looks like. I think that was the biggest takeaway if we're going to invest. If we don't invest and we don't agree what that is, then I think we are less likely to be successful. So I don't think it's about how we structure or the detail of how we get there as far as success. It's more about, really what that looks like in probably the more simplest terms. That's how I interpret it. It could be wrong, but that's how I would see it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner West?
Great work. This is really exciting. I just got out of a couple AOC meetings where all the counties are wrestling with how to find direction and leadership in this, and many of them are looking to our county because of good work like this. I had a really long and one of just hopefully more future conversations with Multnomah County Commissioner Dr. Sharon Murin, who is really hoping to continue to push something like this in her county, but she's, finding different roadblocks that we're not facing here and a clear vision. You can see in other places where if money were the problem would already be solved. We have gobs of money coming in. It's way more than we thought would coming in with the SHS tax. But this helps us not just throw spaghetti on the wall, right? This helps us be very purposeful in what we're doing. I had a couple questions and things that stuck out to me. First, I want to talk about number 3. I was just from a clinical standpoint, super impressed with how they detailed out a full continuum of care and services that are needed here on this. It's color coded in the one that mine's printed out black and white, but from triage, street level homelessness intake to that moment, if that's where that person is, all the way to employment and job training, where we have multiple access points to care depending on where an individual is to get this, harkens exactly back to what a recovery-oriented system of care where people get access for the health care needs that they have at that moment. I think that shows success for us. I think something that shows success for us is a recovery-oriented system of care in the Portland metro area is novel. It's maybe to us in this room, it seems like something that's kind of, well, of course, this is the pathway we take. No, this is novel leadership in Oregon. Mm-hmm. This is not what we've seen come out of Salem from the Oregon Health Authority and from most of the Portland area. We see pockets of this, like you've talked about, but a system that enables us to get people the chronic long-term care that they need in a competent way that's successful, that does not exist here at all. And I think being able to share this concept like we're doing at AOC and other places is critical. And I really am glad that you put this paragraph from our resolution because it set the tone for where what this is in front of us today. And it says, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Clackamas County that all efforts to address homelessness in which the county and its employees engage must be concentrated on helping residents participate in realizing their full human potential by ensuring shelter, psychiatric, behavioral health, and addiction care for all who need it, and by protecting the public spaces for the use of the entire community. We set that ball in motion there. The inertia happened. We set it at that moment. Couple questions. We talked about the appoint operations committee to develop a detailed plan to implement these activities. I see Adam is in the room. Sorry, Adam, calling you out. We had a presentation briefly, what was it, a week ago or a couple weeks ago. I'm curious if that is this or if how that would work in conjunction with potentially taking up this suggestion. Are they parallel? Are they together? Or, how do we weigh the two things where it talks about appoint an operation committee to develop a detailed plan to implement these activities? It sounded very similar to me what you were talking about before us for funding a week or two ago. Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. So, Commissioner West, what we were trying to do with the agreement that was before you last week, which we're going to have subsequent conversations on, is establish a framework that can support the integration of various aspects of feedback, to include feedback exactly like this. We don't currently have these advisory structure apparatus that can facilitate conversations, meaningfully incorporate the feedback, synthesize that information and recommendations for the board, and actually staff that, right? So the contract that was before you last week was the facilitation support. So I think there's two pieces. One, staff capacity, which is what that contract was for, right? Using the HSCCC to actually facilitate this framework. And then it's the establishment of the framework itself, which is the board's prerogative, right? How does the board want to structure homeless services and recovery-based advisory structure to adequately gather the feedback that the board wants? So I think we got a little bit out over our skis in just bringing that agreement to the board without having that conversation about the board's prerogative relative to what that framework looks like. We went straight to, well, we need capacity to make it happen, right? And then it's, oh, wait, slow down a second. let's make sure we're all on the same page about how we're going to institute that. So that's a long-winded answer, which I know I tend to give long-winded answers, but context is important. And we want to make sure that the board has feedback from all facets of our system, and we're trying to create the capacity to do that.
So do you think that the operations committee here that's recommended within this summit could play a dual capacity to what you were bringing forward? Do we see this overlap? We don't even have, how many committees do we need, right? Like, we're trying to figure out.
I think it should be complementary.
Complementary?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think it could do the role of what's asked here, or would you say, no, we could have, this would be two separate committees, Commissioner? Like,
I think it's two separate committees, and under the framework that we had proposed was an executive committee, and then under that executive committee, subgroups, right? Like the Lived Experience Council. This could be situated under that. We also have there's a contemplated group of our community homeless services stakeholders, right? Our service providers. So I think it could be situated under that and rolling up to like an executive committee that winds up making formal recommendations to the board.
Because I see, like, if we were to do a recovery-oriented center campus, find a property, roll out something that does this entire care continuum on a multi-acreage campus, there's a lot of necessary input and operational input and expertise that is needed, all the way from somebody with lived experience to somebody who's built one of these before, right?
Absolutely. And not just the homeless services system, but our behavioral health system, right? Our health centers division that's a deliverer of services, all of that. Yeah.
And Commissioner Schrader and I had the opportunity to go to Haven for Hope and see something like this in action, and seen a couple other similar like facilities that are really successful. So I think this is really exciting stuff. And then when we say keep providing, keep talking, where we are a leading voice in this, not just town halls. I'm going to throw something kind of wild out there. It'd be amazing if on a local level, a couple counties got together and even threw a conference about what recovery looks like on a local level, to continue to kind of flex your voice to say, hey, this is, and create the narrative that's like, this is how we get through this as a local community. And I think that there's ways to like continue the conversation even beyond a summit and grow that, where we continue to do that on a bigger scale. So I think that's maybe a creative way to look at this too. Even a recovery summit turns into a recovery conference where all our stakeholders are involved. I don't know if you've heard anything along these lines, Cindy. I see you nodding.
Yeah, that was one of the things that the panelists recommended, again, to not stop the conversation, but to make sure there's opportunities to continue them. And so there's lots of different ways to do that, and certainly a recovery conference is one way, but you want to give people different opportunities to participate. So absolutely.
There are a lot of leaders coming out in spearheading this as we all figure this crisis out as in Oregon. And I tell you, I hear it every day, Clackamas County is in the forefront of that. What we've done in the last 10 months is epic. From, it wasn't always easy. We had a hotel thing go up and down in a ride. Then we had, different varying thoughts and opinions. But I think what we are starting to put together in 10 months is absolutely, we're celebrating, and it is setting us up to be purposeful with record money that we have coming in a way that allows us to show competent adult leadership in this space, with a clear framework in which we're operating. I don't know if the other two big counties that are getting these funds are being as clear with their direction as Clackamas County, and I think that breeds confidence in people. Why we see a lot of failure around us, they're hungry for that leadership, and we're showing it at Clackamas. So great job on this. It was an honor to be a part of this, to help put this together, and I am really, really excited by where we're going. Thank you.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, thanks, everybody. I'm also really excited about this, and I always kind of jump ahead of the curve to operating it. How do we do this? What I would like to see, quite frankly, is a recovery center that is modeled after the Haven of Hope. For me, that would be an outcome. The issue is, I don't know if that's the outcome that the community wants yet. But there's a framework, right, Cindy? You're nodding the head. I know, after what I saw, I'm clear that one-stop shop works. I'm clear that it's actually an informative model or a structure of the one-stop shop that seems to be having significant success. And I always like to look at successful models before we look at anything. However, here's the rub. I'm assuming then the continuum of care that you are putting together is the group that will help us put this kind of a conversation into operations. And what I mean is how we've always managed it, or I've always tried to go through these processes, is have the discovery phase, find out what we've done best in this county. Okay, we already know that. You know what you've done best. I think I know, well, you know better than I do what you do best, actually. And have that conversation first about what do we already have out there? What are we doing best? Let's identify the common factors. The second phase, I always call it the dream phase. So how do you get the leaders together, the resources, the behaviors, the physical space, organizational processes to change? So that next phase would be to create a vision of the future. Is the creation of the vision of the future would be, at least from my perspective, looking at this, having this operationalized in this county with a recovery center that is holistic and has all the stakeholders involved with it and is coordinated around a single physical focus area that we can build on. Okay, so once you have that vision, then you design it, okay? So what do we need to reach that? What do we need to do to get a recovery center on the ground? And then that's where we start with the strategy, the tactical things we need to do. Okay, creating models and prototypes of the different elements, mapping steps, identifying required resources, and engaging the support of others. So that piece of it may change a little bit. The recovery model I saw down in Texas, but at least then you would be getting the community input about what would be reasonable to have and make this happen in this county to fit the Clackamas way. Okay, and finally, then we implement the design. So that's kind of where I am at this point, guys. I just want to implement the vision. And I liked what I saw at that recovery center. Does it have to exactly be the same thing? No. It depends on what the community input is. So is the continuum of care, that group, going to be the people from all the providers, all the people who are working on this issue, plus the business community, plus the education community, and plus the workforce community on that body to help us design and operationalize this recovery center if that's what we choose to do? I think it is the right way to go. I'm biased because I saw it in action. So I'm just telling you guys, I'm already there, okay?
Well, I know, just a moment, and I have a thought on that, Cindy.
So, Commissioners, I would say yes, and part of the deal is this isn't rocket science. We know what the services are. We in general know who the individuals are, and I don't think we have to have this 10-year process to kind of figure out what we need. It's really, I think we have a running start. We need people, boots on the ground, to really operationalize this.
Yes.
We need that whole input and how do we inform that? But I think it's important that, we could spend years collecting input from people, and they won't agree. And so the question is, how do we do the best job in the amount of time that you want to dedicate, and then how do we, there's people have to actually operationalize this, really the guts of making this happen, and they don't have to be sequential. We can start doing these things along the same route. So that I would just implore you not to come up with this huge network of committees that will just, choke you.
Okay.
So we need this, and we need to get information, but we need it to be meaningful. And then we also need to start working on
Martha,
it.
do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just have a follow-up with that. My intention would be is to not get a whole bunch of committees. That's why I'm mentioning the continuum of care specifically. To me, that makes the most sense where it might land. Again, I'm operationalizing, thinking ahead with this. The other piece of that is I don't see this as a 10-year thing and just meeting after meeting after meeting. I see it as getting this information, getting the design and implementation within maybe well, of course, I'd want it done tomorrow, I'll be honest with you. That's not going to happen because that's not how things work. But I would be thinking at least a 2 to 3 year period is what I'm thinking. I mean, beginning, middle, end, and let's get it done. And I'm not seeing this as multiple meetings. I'm seeing it as the right thought leaders at the table to help guide us and then
Absolutely.
move it ahead. Okay,
Great.
including the school district that talked to me the other day about, facilities. So,
Okay.
okay.
Commissioner Savas, and then I'm going to have a recommendation.
Yeah, I think we're getting hung up on the word committee quite a bit. I'm just kind of wondering if it's more of a task force or a work group or whatnot, because I think that the committee, what this group is going to be doing, the way it's going to be funded, and the kind of work they're going to be doing is not really what we consider or look at as a committee. And as I mentioned last week, I want to make sure that whatever work is performed, there's follow-through, right? We're taking, or we're working with, a majority of those recommendations or whatever they may be. The other issue I want to be mindful of is that, when I talked to Dr. Mendenhall after the second day, or our first day with them, but their second day, and coupling together the fact that a lot of things we talk about apply, mental health, behavioral health issues in addiction apply to people that are housed and people that are unhoused. And we certainly have far more money for the unhoused right now with supported housing services, but the larger population is the housed where we have the least amount of money, so it's backwards. But when I talked to Dr. Mendenhall, he had some great ideas and sits on some interesting groups and boards. And I think we can obviously weave this together, right? Braid the funding together. But I am very concerned really that, number one, we have metrics embedded somewhere in this, not necessarily a vision, but at least in the outcomes, so that we can be successful in keeping whatever funding we have going for a longer period of time. I'm just concerned that the largest amount of money we have, if we don't make a dent regionally on this housing issue, the homeless issue, I think we're having a very hard time getting the voters to renew it. So I think we need to be mindful of, if that fails, then maybe what is the buildings or the assets and the staffing and all that can transition more to the larger population of need, which is the housed, if we can, again, prove ourselves. I think that was the theme I got out of talking to Dr. Mendenhall. So there's a way of doing this. But I think we need to leave it to those with the greatest experience to help guide us through that. So maybe let's change the name to work group or something different than committee.
Right. The other thing, the state did get approval from the feds to actually use Medicaid dollars around housing for people who are Medicaid eligible. So for that pot of money, if you will, it's for people who are housed as well. So it's different than the SHS, but complementary.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I would say that we are lucky here at Clackamas County that most of the players, at least the county level programmatic administration of all the pieces, fall under the purview of one department. We're Health, Housing, and Human Services. So you're right that folks are looking to the homeless services system, and we know that there's a lot of need on the streets, and there's a lot of acuity, and people are suffering a lot. And there's also a lot of house people that need resources too. But so I think let's not think of it necessarily as a homeless services crisis that the homeless services system needs to solve, but task H3S, period, our health centers division, our behavioral health division, our CFCC with our workforce and all that, let us work together. You all chart the course, set the objectives for the county, and send me, Rod, and Denise to work leveraging the resources of our department to achieve the county's goals.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to make a recommendation, but first I want to say something. Yes, we are capable of walking and chewing gum at the same time, and we have been doing that. We have reduced homelessness. We are treating mental illness. We are treating drug addiction. We are housing people. That has been going on, and we do have metrics to show that we're successful. However, with the advent of Measure 110, the addiction rate has soared while governments cannot keep up. We're trying to address that. Committee, I am going to recommend that we convene those planning sessions that we said we wanted at a retreat, and we focus on the recommendation number one, a very broad definition of what success looks like. Now, we're going to continue with what you want and with what you want and stuff, but if we are to accept the recommendations, all 5 that are presented to us, at least that's a groundwork where we can get together in a planning session before the end of the year, where all 5 commissioners can participate. I invite Cindy Becker and Adam Brown and Vahid Brown and Denise and whomever else wants to participate and facilitate us in thinking, what does success look like? I know we have 2 commissioners, one on each side of me, that want to do that recovery center yesterday. And that's going to save us from everything. Well, it just may not. And what if it doesn't? And you're all convinced that everything's going to work. I've been talking, last week I've had a couple very, very doctors, lawyers talk to me. Over in Tualatin, we have what used to be the Serenity Lane model. And that worked very well. And there's a doctor over there now that we probably should, right in our own backyard, just get his idea on it, because he's in Oregon. He knows what's worked. So I'm going to try to schedule this, find a date that works for all commissioners, and we sit down and we roll up our sleeves and we define what success looks like. Yes, we will continue on these other avenues, and we know what they are, okay, but this is the number 1 recommendation on this, and we're going to work on that, and everybody can come in with their own definitions of success. I'm not saying it needs to be long. I'm not saying it needs to be short. We need a definition, and yes, it can change every 6 months if it has to change every 6 months. It's very fluid, and as more information comes to us, we can certainly be flexible in what we're doing. Commissioner West?
Thank you, Chair. Cindy, one more question about the Operations Committee point on here. Did the members of the panel and our participants in the summit, when you guys had the meetings before and after, did they give any more detail on what they thought that might look like? Did they have any more insight beyond the more broad statement and bullet point we have in front of us?
Well, I think the main thing is they wanted to differentiate it from an advisory committee who just has ideas, and this is the people that are actually going to implement, get these things done. They're the ones that are going to be working, that, whether they're staff or consultants or community people, whatever it is, they're going to actually get the work done. So they're not in an advisory committee that's kind of a little bit removed. So that was the main difference.
So more operational, direct work with the board to do some of these bigger items.
Right, because, obviously a huge piece of this is funding.
Yeah.
And so these are the people who are going to bring the right folks together. They're the people that are going to really reach out to get people who need to be at the table to make decisions, not just advising.
Like a Dan Fowler type. I'm just throwing his name out there because I know he's doing the navigation there, but people like that engaged in the community that would work directly with the board to help operationally lift some of this off the
People
ground.
who can get things done.
Get things done, okay.
Absolutely. Gary, next steps.
Schedule a planning meeting, and the board will focus on defining success. And
Thank you.
After that, we can do everything else.
I'm going to see if we can have at least, a 2-hour block of time, an hour and a half. We all like to talk. We all have these ideas, but to come out with a product is my goal in this, to have a real product that staff can use and consolidate all of our thoughts into. And then staff, too, bring what you think your definition of success is. It's just not us, lip service to all this. Cindy?
I just have one final thing, and I think it goes to what you said, Chair. There is no silver bullet. The Recovery-Oriented Center is not the silver bullet. We're looking at a system. And what they said, the panelists said, please don't ignore the rest of the system and just put all your energy into the center. It really needs to come across.
Yeah, let's talk about structure, too. So I'm going to recommend we have a definition of success, and let's talk about the structures in place and how we move forward. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing none, thank you very much, Cindy and Adam, for coming forward. Gary, what's next?
Next, advisory board and commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Aging Services Advisory Council, staffed by Health, Housing, Human Services, currently has 10 openings on their commission due to resignations. 21 members are allowed with 3-year terms. Through a recruitment process, 8 applications are received, 5 are recommended for appointment. Those recommendations are Dana Lord to a first term, James O'Brien to a first term, Lynn Byrne to a first term, Patricia Tornson to a first term, and Scott Stahl to a first term.
I will accept a motion.
Move to appoint the slate.
Second?
Commissioner Savas has moved that we appoint to the Aging Services Advisory Council Dana Lord, James O'Brien, Lynn Byrne, Patricia Torson, and Scott Stahl. And Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. What's next?
The Clackamas County Budget Committee currently has one opening on their commission due to term expiration. Through a recruitment process, 2 applications were received, 1 recommended for appointment. The recommendation is Wendy Rader to a first term.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Wendy Rader to the Clackamas County Budget Committee.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved we appoint Wendy Rader to the Budget Committee, and it has been seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Next, Commissioner Communications.
Okay, Paul, do you have anything you'd like to say today?
Certainly a lot of, again, as always, a lot of discussions going on in my world with transportation, tolling, funding, number of issues. I'm deeply concerned with all the messaging that's been coming out from different organizations, ODOT in particular, that it's really created a lot of confusion out there. I think what we were all led to believe for funding as related to operations and maintenance not only affects ODOT, but affected us, but more importantly, that it was something we foresaw as something coming in the next year or 2 or 3, not something that was upon us today. In reality, when I watch the news and I see that there's probably not enough money for graffiti, and there's not enough money to plow the roads, the state highway roads, for example, because we share that split of gas tax dollars with the state, counties and cities, 50, 30, 20 is the proportion, we ought to be experiencing the same drastic aspects or image or conundrum that the state's facing. But in reality, sure, we're not seeing as much revenue come in, but not that severe. In reality, what's really happening here is either a lot of the funds that were appropriated towards maintenance have been shifted to other priorities, which is relatively true, and or it's a combination of trying to draw attention to this by trying to impress upon folks that we're all going to run out of money, we need to do something now, and that's why we need to accept tolling as the solution and our savior to these crises, when in reality, I think we at least need an honest picture of what that is. And I'm not even so sure right now that there's enough data and good, solid information to actually tell people from a statewide level what that really need is. But I would say that if we don't have enough money to plow our roads, then the state or the Oregon Transportation Commission should revisit their prioritization and maybe put that money back into operations and maintenance that they once had and fill that bucket up and maybe look at other areas. But I think that there's been this big shift towards, in the last several years, my colleagues, that the big shift has been to things other than capacity and maintenance and safety. It's been more along the lines of particular projects, climate, equity, things like that, all of which are important, but I don't think the state's been very clear about all that. So I will leave it there. I just want to wish everyone out there a fun and safe Halloween evening with all the trick-or-treaters. Be mindful, people out there driving. It's dark. When these kids are out there trick-or-treating, drive slowly, drive cautiously, and everyone be safe out there.
Thank you. Commissioner Schull.
Yes, good morning. Last Wednesday, the Metro Policy Advisory Committee met. We went over the recommended changes to the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan from the Metro Transportation Advisory Committee. We redlined it. The copy of that redlined, Commissioner Savas, I have here if you want it. The motion to approve that passed. Then we talked about the high-capacity transit investment by TriMet. My concern there was that the money for the Tier 1 and Tier 2, there's a lot of it, but when you get down to Tier 3 and Tier 4 bus lines, as you move to the southeast and deeper into Clackamas County, there's little investment, and because of that, I voted no on it. The motion to approve it, though, did pass. Then on Thursday, the 82nd Avenue High Capacity Transit Steering Group met in person. We discussed the work plan timeline. We discussed funding, how to come up with the $185 million that TriMet wants to invest into the 82nd High Capacity Transit Project. We talked about the location for a northern terminal of the line, being PDX or Cascade Station, or possibly the Park Rose Transit Center. And I mentioned that as the steering committee looks at this very expensive project, that we cannot fail to consider the fact that every morning thousands of cars and trucks come out of Clackamas County from areas where there is no bus service, and they need also to be able to transit the 82nd Avenue on the way to work, for deliveries, for shopping, etc. A couple of the TriMet personnel answered back to me, quote, "Your Clackamas County driving habits will change, your transportation modes will change in the future," and I disagree. So we're going to butt heads on that. Line 72, which is 82nd Avenue, is the most used transit line in the TriMet system. And I don't know if it's in the black, but it's the closest one to being in the black. And after a $185 million investment, I'm not so sure it's going to be in the black anymore. So that's those two meetings last week. This Saturday, I will be touring the Camp Creek Fire area with the supervisor of the Mount Hood National Forest. And I also want to mention one thing. I understand that the city of Portland, their camping ban goes into effect on 13 November. And I can't help but wonder what impact that might have on Clackamas County. Just something for us to think about in the next 2 weeks. And also, I wish everybody a happy Halloween. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Yes, everyone, happy Halloween. After my meetings today, I'll be going to Safeway over the lunch hour to make sure I have enough candy at my house for all those trick-or-treaters that are going to be showing up tonight. A few things that I did this week that I think a number of us went to the court-appointed, the CASA's benefit luncheon, and these are the folks that work in our court system to work with kids that are in the foster care system or in some reason in front of the court system to mentor them and move them along. It was a nice, absolutely nice lunch. It's something that eventually I would like to volunteer for myself because I'm used to taking care of all the kids that need it from my previous life. as a mother, and actually not only my own kids, but having everybody else's kids at my house. I did have a meeting yesterday with Cindy Deckchon, who is the North Clackamas School District Assistant Superintendent. We talked about a number of things. We talked about, again, childcare capacity, after-school programs, what we can be doing with them more directly to increase workforce initiatives here, work more closely with our workforce board, and that was a pretty enlightening discussion. I did want to let you know that I wanted to mention that there is something from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is a notice of funding opportunity for its pro-housing program. I don't know if we have looked at that, but I'm hopeful that we will. And then another thing that's happening is on October 23rd, the Economic Development Administration published a Notice to Funding Opportunity, NOFO, for its Phase 2 of Regional Technology and Innovation Hub program. This Tech Hub program aims to strengthen U.S. economic and national security with investments across the country with assets and resources with potential to become globally competitive in the technologies and industries of the future. And for those industries, companies, and good jobs they create to start, grow, and remain in the United States. In this second phase, the Economic Development Administration will award implementation grants to 5 to 10 designated tech hubs, with each of those hubs receiving approximately $40 to $70 million across approximately 3 to 8 projects. So I'll be looking at this with our new Economic Development Director, Laura Edmonds, and bringing this to her attention because as we know with all the opportunities for chip production, we're very interested in looking at those businesses that are here already that need to expand, want to be part of a tech hub and can be part of the supply chain for those industries here, right here in Oregon. And Chair, that's all I have for the day.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
Thank you so much. This last week, I had another meeting with the steering committee for housing and homelessness and addiction for AOC. It was really great. We had stakeholders and county representation from all over the county, including from our director from our juvenile services were there. A number of DAs were there in the room, kind of talking about and informing counties on what's likely with Measure 110, how we might be able to partner with the League of Oregon Cities on a common narrative and policy solutions to Measure 110 as we go into the short session, and being a part of that conversation from a local government standpoint. It was really a great conversation. Even those that are proposing the ballot measure to amend and fix Measure 110 were also there. Kevin Barton, is it Max Williams, is he former legislator? Because he said he served with you guys.
Yes.
He served with you.
And I was there when my ex-husband was serving.
Yes.
And I knew him very well.
So he talked about both of you to me, we're serving with you guys and thinks really highly of what's happening in Clackamas County. They said, you guys just keep on doing it, what you're doing. Even I had like I talked about earlier, a long conversation with Dr. Murin out of the commissioner out of Multnomah County, who's really impressed with like what's happening here, and Julia Brem Edwards and others. So great conversation happening. I think as we go into our conference in November, we'll see more of a galvanizing conversation around what Measure 110, and I think it helps to have a large county like ours helping to spur that conversation forward, and also explaining how it's not just a metro area problem, but how we also need to be sensitive to the rural issues that they have around, which is uniquely different than the urban area, right? With addiction and homelessness, we know firsthand in Clackamas County since we have such a large rural population. So really great collaboration. And I know there's more conversations also that we care about around assist and release or assist and for getting that has to do with people, assistant aid, that has to do with people within the state prison. Also getting that we've signed on to with Marion County and the other lawsuit to be friends of the court. So a lot of great conversations around this, developing, spent a lot of time with that, and meeting with different legislators. I had a long conversation and met with Representative Travis Nelson out of Northeast Portland, who's also a nurse. We may not agree on many things, but we could find some real conversation. He was like, well, what is happening in Clackamas County that's not happening in Multnomah County? Because he's in the thick of it there. That's his echo chamber. That's his team, right? I guess politically. But over dinner, we had an ability to really, and he was very impressed, really begin to share, well, Representative, this is why we do it this way in Clackamas, and this is the outcomes that we're having. And so he's an influential legislator on the health committees. And so just really good conversations happening about that. Hope everybody has a happy Halloween and have a busy week like the rest of us do across the county. So I'll leave it at that. I'm sure I'll have more to share on Thursday.
Are you coming Thursday? Because we won't be here. We're all
I'm sure
going
I'll
to
have
the.
one on Wednesday. I actually just saw that, on Wednesday,
Yeah, okay, thank you. I hear Representative Mannix is doing something on a Measure 110 referral. Do you know anything about that? You don't have to answer that now.
No, I do not.
Regarding our meeting with Costa, the luncheon we had, I tell you, there was hardly a dry eye in the house on some of those testimonies. And, if I became a CASA volunteer, I'd probably want to adopt every single one of those kids. So that might be.
Yeah, that's one of my problems.
Yeah, it was very good. I look forward to, Commissioners, working with you on going ahead with our planning meeting. We have no meetings tomorrow. Nothing is scheduled for tomorrow unless you have personal appointments. And on Thursday, there are no business meetings because we will be attending the Home Builders Summit. Correct, Gary? Yes. So seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.